Welcome to the full story series for Manowar. This is Comicstorian, my name is Benny, and I'm your narrator. Manowar is one of the superheroes in the Valiant universe, and today we're going to be covering volume 1 through 5 of the original series that came out during their reboot, and then we're going to cover the Book of Death, in which he was a part of, and the Unity Battle. It's not everything that they've done for Manowar, but it's a lot of the intro stuff, which will introduce you to one of the most important characters in the Valiant universe. I hope you guys enjoy, and I'll see you at the end of the video.
Welcome to Northern Italy, 402 AD. The Visigoths and the Romans are going to war, and the Visigoths are worried about their chances with such an impressive number of soldiers that the Romans have brought to the battlefield. That is until the mightiest warrior, Auric, arrives shouting, "Hold your ground, Visigoths! Show the Romans what we are made of!" He leads the charge, bringing the Visigoths back to the battle. The swords hit the armor and the shields block the arrows, but the men of the Visigoth are terrified at the amount of them. "There are too many," they shout. But Auric stands his ground. "Patience, I can only kill one at a time." The soldiers are right though, and there are far too many. Auric ignores all of this until his own father is wounded on the battlefield. So the Visigoths pack up and retreat to the outskirts of northern Italy, where Auric stays at his father's bedside until he passes. Furious over the death, Auric grabs some able-bodied men and they lead a night assault on the Romans. And that's when things get odd, my dear listeners. Because as they head back to what surely would have been their demise, they find odd-looking men in very odd-looking armor in what appears to be an odd-looking wagon. Auric charges in and catches them off guard, while his men fight these strange soldiers with fire coming out of their hands. He removes the soldier's helmet, and he sees a beast. While this battle is going on, these beasts are sneaking into the Visigoth camp, where they steal a baby and they put down one of their own, after injecting it with a fluid that makes it take the appearance of the baby that they just stole. But back with Auric, he leads his men into a charge against the giant metal suit, only to have his father's sword break as he tries to strike it. He stares down in shock that it was broken, and the metal suit swings at him, throwing him to the ground. Every one of those soldiers was knocked unconscious, and they were carried aboard the beast's bizarre wagon. But we know the truth. These beasts and their wagons are actually aliens with ships, and Auric was just abducted. Once they're brought to the colony, they're carried off in chains, but Auric breaks himself free and he chokes his guard. Free, but on a strange world, he sets a friend free, and the two of them run throughout the alien hallways. Absolutely and completely lost, they wander the many hallways until they make their way to a ritual, in which one of these aliens has been given an odd sphere. The alien touches it, and he opens it up, and then it encases him in a blue and yellow armor. Then it kills the alien, and returns back to the pedestal. The aliens look at it saddened. They won't get their warrior. The Shanhara has rejected another one of them. Auric was obviously recaptured. He's on an alien world with no idea how he can leave. He then finds himself jailed with the rest of the slaves. Years pass, and Auric keeps himself going by thinking about what he's gonna do when he's free, how he's gonna break out and return to his wife. Oh, his wife, how he misses her. The aliens force the slaves to tend to their gardens, and they grow all types of exotic fruits. And eventually, Auric even loses his hand in one of his moments of defiance. But he sees no way of escaping and continually uses his wife as a motivator to get out of this situation. Eventually, they do hatch a plan, and Auric leads the slaves to rebellion. They run through the colony with no idea where they're going to end up, killing as many aliens as they can en route and taking their weapons. But eventually, they find themselves backed into an armory that has no weapons. It only has that orb that turned into armor. Their plan was to load up on guns and fight until they died. But with only this orb here, Auric touches it. The armor conforms around Auric's body and he screams in pain. But then it stops and the armor stays on him. He wastes no time in blasting through these aliens, and the armor even reforms his missing hand. It's a miracle, he says. This armor is a miracle. He leads the charge throughout the ship, mass murdering the aliens. They stand no chance against this armor. And eventually, they even try to throw explosives at it. And while many of the human slaves who were alongside Auric are killed, the armor stands, and then he launches into the sky, firing a rocket back at the aliens. Eventually, he finds himself against the giant metal suit of armor that took him from his home, and he jumps straight at it. "You took me for my family, my home, my wife. If you won't fight me man to man, then you will fight me armor to armor." He smashes open the cockpit and he reaches inside. "I will take your life. I will take your head." But the alien slaps explosives to Auric's chest. He looks down at it in shock and he jumps off the armor and then it explodes, taking out half of the alien spaceship with him. But he survives and he drifts off into space trying to get his bearings. The aliens try to lock the ship's cannons onto him. Seeing that he's about to be in trouble, he starts shouting out, "Rome! Rome! Rome!" And just like that, he appears in the city of Rome in the year 2012. He crash lands into the Colosseum, tearing down one of the walls. Shocked, he removes his helmet and looks around, but various soldiers are quickly arriving and raising their rifles at him. He turns and he sees them, and then he grits his teeth. "Roman pigs! So the general has dispatched his legionnaires to come welcome me. I hope he sent his best." And then he puts his helmet back on, and he begins to fire on them. He quickly propels himself at them and flies into the sky. Looking over the city, he sees that things have changed, and he intends to tear this new city apart. Nothing will keep Auric of the Visigoth, except the missile coming up from behind him, and it hits him square in the back. He turns around and he charges straight at the fighter jet, flying right down the middle of it, tearing it apart. Auric grabs the pilot out of the cockpit of another jet and he demands to know where the Emperor is. The terrified man tells him, "Italy doesn't have an emperor." Shocked, Auric can say nothing but, "You lie." But the suit helps him, and it fills him in with the knowledge of all major events that have happened since he left, and he realizes he's been gone for 16 centuries. He carries the pilot back down to Earth and he asks him where the Visigoths are, and the pilot tells him that Rome is just a city now. The Visigoths don't exist anymore. So he takes off to sort his thoughts out. This is gonna take some time. Meanwhile, in another part of the world, the man is watching the news and he sees the armor, and he recognizes it. He sits up in his chair and he closes his eyes and he teleports himself mentally to a shared mindscape where many others are standing right now. All of the individuals here know that that was the Manowar armor, and the aliens know that their presence has been revealed to the world. It is time for them to invade Earth and get their armor back before any more damage can be done. And in another part of the globe, MI6 calls in one of its best agents, Ninjak, and he's been ordered to bring in the yellow and blue suit of armor. It looks like this world is about to see a number of heroes, and things are about to get interesting. He lands with a deafening thud on the old battlegrounds of his people, and using his alien armor, he scans the ground to see the bones and the weapons of his people. A young girl runs up to him explaining that it is now 2012, and then her mother pulls her back as the Italian soldiers arrive. Auric takes off for the skies, telling them that he has no fight with them, and he goes to a waterfall in Peru so that he can bathe and sort out his thoughts. Meanwhile, the aliens that he stole his battle armor from aren't happy that he has taken it to Earth and allowed the Earthlings to know the truth about their weapons. They send in a special task force led by one of their men on the ground, Alexander Dorian, to remove the armor from Auric, but Auric destroys them without even breaking a sweat. Realizing that he already has control over the armor, the aliens use their agents inside of MI6 to send in MI6's best agent, Ninjak. Auric didn't actually kill everyone though. He left Alexander alive because he wants answers as to why they're attacking him. Alexander explains that they were sent in to capture him, but he came to speak with Auric about Shanhara. "How do you know that name?" Auric demands. And Dorian replies in the alien language, "I have known Shanhara far longer than you." Auric is furious and he throws Dorian aside. "Explain yourself!" And just then, Ninjak lobs a throwing star at Auric, clipping his ear. Auric turns around with anger burning in his eyes, and Ninjak gets 2 more into his chest. "Show yourself, coward!" Auric shouts, and then Ninjak appears behind him, holding his sword to Auric's shoulder. "I have seen women trim their hair with longer blades than that. I am Auric of Dacia. I cut my teeth on swords." Auric then tries to summon the armor to him, forming it around his body, but he suddenly feels drowsy and he falls to the ground as Ninjak's tranquilizers have taken their effect. Ninjak then frees Alexander and he asks him about the armor, confused as to why it's reacting to its target. When Alexander isn't very forthcoming, Ninjak decides that his contacts at MI6 can handle this, and he loads up both Dorian and Auric into his jet. Once they're all loaded up, Dorian sinks back into the Gathering, a shared mindscape where the aliens can talk with their agents on Earth. They explain to Dorian that he has to make sure that the armor is secure, and then the sleeper agents will come back to the home planet, because the Earth is about to be destroyed. Alexander Dorian is in shock. "What? Why would you destroy the Earth? We have the armor secured." And the aliens explain that the armor hasn't been worn by anyone for a millennia. It destroys the mind of anyone who tries, and now an Earthling has it, and he's using it against them. Humanity's end is at hand. Alexander wakes up from the gathering saying to himself, "Not yet." He walks over and he turns off the gases, keeping Auric unconscious. And just then, Ninjak enters the room in time to see that Alexander is setting the armor free. The armor starts going for Auric, suiting him up, and he jumps off the table ready to fight. This time, we fight face to face. Ninjak tries to shut the door to the room, but Auric melts it with his energy sword, and he begins to swing it at Ninjak as Ninjak is dodging. Over and over, Auric misses until he grabs Ninjak by the throat. No more dodging. Ninjak breaks free and he runs to the cargo hold, where he opens up the cargo hold and jumps out of the plane, riding the cargo safely down to the ground. Auric then opens fire on the crate, shouting, "Face me, coward!" But Ninjak takes cover behind the crate. With the plane going down, Alexander tells Auric to take him with him. There's an invasion coming. That's why he saved Auric. So Auric takes Alexander and they fly off, with the Ninjak watching where they're headed to. Auric and Alexander take cover in one of the houses in the area, where Alexander explains everything that's going on to Auric. The aliens aren't happy that Auric took the armor, and they will destroy the entire Earth to keep it hidden. They'll need Ninjak on their side. He's only working for the enemy because he doesn't know the truth, and in order to save the planet, they'll need both of them. These aliens, the Vine, they travel through the galaxy cultivating fruits that they bring slaves in to maintain. But they consider the fruits holy and they refuse to eat them, instead allowing them to fall and rot in the ground. The Vine don't appreciate the bounties and the pleasures of the world. They are no different from the mindless plants that they cultivate. Alexander has no intentions of returning to them. When the Vine find a world, they typically leave behind beings known as plantlings to become sleeper agents on that world. That's what Alexander and the other people in the Mindscape are. They get integrated everywhere, and other than the whole slavery and abduction thing, the Vine are harmless. But as Alexander is finishing telling the story of the Vine, the armor reacts to Ninjak sneaking around the room. Their fight starts again as Ninjak jumps in using a flashbang to blind Auric. He begins to wildly shoot around the room, and once his eyes finally clear, he sees that Ninjak has Alexander hostage. "If you think I have any loyalty to that creature, you are a fool. I will gladly blast through him to get to you and be rid of you both." "Are you not listening?" Alexander exclaims. "The invasion fleet is on its way." So he explains again to Ninjak. But Ninjak wants proof, which is easy for Alexander to do. He warps into the Mindscape to inform the agents in MI6 that the armor has been spotted in Venezuela. The agents of MI6 then call up Ninjak to inform him that his target is in Venezuela and he'll need to move there. Hanging up his phone, Ninjak looks to the group. I didn't like them anyway. They work quickly, taking out one of the other plantlings and moving towards London. Their first objective is to remove the threat of MI6, and Auric and Ninjak meet up outside of their headquarters. Auric takes to the skies while Ninjak calls it in. "I have the armor you were asking for. It took me a while to get it back to you." And then Auric opens up their assault by blasting the building with his suit. He begins blowing the walls apart while they try and scramble reinforcements, and the plantlings begin shooting the normal civilians in the building so they can arm themselves. But this is Auric of the Visigoth, and he swoops in, dropping them all like flies. It takes a full anti-air cannon to knock him out of the sky and into the bay below. With the armor finally downed, MI6 scrambles to capture it, but Ninjak's contact screams into his mic, "You need to destroy it! If we don't, it'll be back!" And that's when Ninjak happens, as throwing stars come flying in, dropping the various guards around his contact. He then lands in front of him. "You were hired to bring the armor to me. This isn't what I had in mind. And you haven't been truthful. Grow up, this is the spy business. We're all liars and conmen." "Not you! You're not a man at all!"
So Alexander told you about us. Did you really think that you would stand a chance?
I have a 5th century barbarian and an alien battlesuit on my side. I think I'll take my chances. Then do what you have to do with your precious time remaining. And Ninjak cuts the plantling in half. Outside in the water, Auric rises ready to continue, and he walks forward, cutting the plantlings apart. With Ninjak's help, they drop every last MI6 agent, and Auric steps forward. "Are there no more?" "Speak up. If any are lurking in the next town over, they might not have heard you. You are truly formidable if you did not use such tiny swords." Now we prepare for what's next. Our truce is only temporary. I have not forgotten that you sought to hand me over to the enemy. If you could be fooled once. I want us around each other less than you do. You're too much of a wrecking ball to be of any practical use to me. Go wage your war in the open, and I'll keep mine to the shadows. We'll remain allies until when? Until we're not. Agreed. And with that, Auric and Ninjak parted ways. But out in deep space, the aliens are approaching, intent on attacking this world. Out in deep space, a man pleads with his captors to kill him. Just kill him already! And in response, the Vine tap further into his brain once again, and they demand to know something that they can use against Auric. How did he activate the Manowar armor? Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dorian and Auric are trying to come up with a plan. The Vine are coming to invade, and he just had an argument with Ninjak, so Ninjak won't be helping. Auric throws on his armor, and instantly it taps into his mind, putting him into the Collective, a mindscape gathering of the Vine's leaders. Auric demands to know where he is, and he tries to attack them, but he simply passes through them. This is only the mindscape. He threatens them all, and he informs them that he will be getting his revenge, but the Vines simply walk away and state that they can't come back to the Collective until they've gotten rid of him. Auric shouts, "Face me!" With one man left in the room, the general of the army, Trill, the man who's been tormenting Auric's friend. He informs Auric that he will be there soon, and he will have his fight. Then, Auric snaps out of it, and he explains that he was in some weird dream world. Dorian knows what this is. It's the Collective, and it explains why the Vine want this armor back so badly. Auric can read the incoming soldiers though. The Vine have arrived with their first wave and they sent in their troops. He takes to the skies to meet them as they come into orbit. Opening fire, they dodge with ease, and then getting behind him, they crack him in the head. He responds by firing on them once again, and they respond by webbing up his hands and pulling him as tight as they can before shocking him. He then pulls his own arms together, throwing the aliens around and into each other, but one of the soldiers charges at him, slapping a bomb onto his chest, and they both explode in the sky. The soldier killed himself, but Auric's armor held, though he is disoriented. Then the other three of them charge at him, slamming him hard into the planet's surface with a massive explosion. They look at each other and they declare Shanhara is not as divine as the priests have decreed. And then, in response to that, Auric literally cuts one of them in half. "You should have kept me in the sky. The ground is a Visigoth's domain." He then cuts off another soldier's hand. The ship then lands in front of them and the doors open up, revealing Commander Trill, holding the prisoner from earlier. "Gafty, how are you alive?" Auric shouts. Gafty is an old friend of Auric's, and he was there when they were captured. When Auric escaped, Gafty was left behind and has suffered ever since. He struggles to get out the words. "Auric, is that you? You swore we could go home, Auric." Trill demands that Auric give up the Shanhara. So Auric does just that, and he tells Trill to let Gafty go. He'll take his place. Trill is confused. "Release him where? Your entire race is about to die, starting with this one!" And then he shoots Gafty. He then looks down to Auric. "And you will hear your own spine snapping. You first." Auric calls back his armor, slamming it into Trill's back and putting it back on. "You think you can wear this armor? Then try and take it," he shouts, throwing Trill into a bus nearby. But as Auric goes in for the kill, Trill makes the call for the ships to move in. It's time for the invasion. Auric approaches Trill and smashes his face in the helmet, just as Gafty comes in, struggling to walk. Auric moves the Shanhara armor from himself to Gafty to heal him. It has amazing healing capabilities once you're inside of it. It even regrew Auric's hand. Gafty hits the ground in an intense amount of pain, and then he goes silent, before launching Auric into the street with a single punch. "Gafty, it's me, Auric! I know who you are. You are to blame for this!" he shouts, shooting at Auric. Auric runs behind a nearby car as Gafty explains the horrible things that the aliens did to him, all because Auric, all because he couldn't listen. Then Gafty lifts up a car and he throws it at Auric, crushing another car. Auric tries to make a break for it, but Gafty shoots him in the back, dropping him, and then he lifts him off the ground. "You always survive, and everyone else has to suffer. No more! Do you hear me? No more! You want revenge, Gafty? Take it. If my life is the cost of your peace, then end it. I always said you would make a great warrior someday." Gafty can't believe what he's doing, and he drops Auric, hitting his knees. "I'm sorry, Auric." Then he looks up into the sky. "They are coming, Auric. The armor knows. God in heaven, the armor talks to me. It tells me what I must do." Gafty gets up and he tells Auric, "Never stop fighting. This is your gift." "Stop! Gafty!" As Gafty launches at top speed into space. He goes right into the middle of the invasion fleet and he lets the armor do its own thing. And in a massive explosion, Gafty ends the invasion. Everything ends because he destroys the entire fleet. The armor then reforms into a ball and it floats down to Earth, where it lands in front of Auric. "Goodbye, old friend," Auric says as he moves towards the Vine ship that they left there. He then boards it and launches into space, with Dorian telling him, asking him to stay. Auric rockets back towards the Vine's homeworld to bring the fight to them. He will rid the galaxy of the Vine. It looks like there will be an invasion. He landed on their planet with a boom! A priest of the Vine religion looked on confused as to why a sewing ship just crash landed on their planet, and Auric steps out of the fiery wreckage. I have brought your armor home! The priest smiles. The day has come! The armor of Shanhara has chosen! A new age has dawned! Except Auric is not the chosen one. Auric is the destruction of the Vine, as he shoots a few of the followers and then charges at them with his sword drawn and ready. Your empire falls today! He shouts, cutting them in half. After killing a few people, Auric approaches the priest that tries to stop him. I was there when you stormed the temple, the armor bound to you. I thought it was sacrilege, but please forgive me. To witness that sacred moment, it was the greatest of blessings. Auric raises his sword, prepared to finish the priest off, when he takes a shot in the back. The Vine's army have arrived and they are using cannons on him. As Auric takes to the skies, destroying every ship in his path, they try to fall back and he opens fire, destroying all of them until none remain. Then he lands back in front of the priest. He puts his blade back to the throat of the alien. No one will escape Auric's revenge. But the priest warns him, be careful. If their planet dies, so will the remaining members of the Visigoth people. The priest leads Auric to a vast land with walls built around it, and Auric is stunned. My eyes play tricks. How can this be, priest? To you, it feels as though only a handful of years have passed since you were captured. But just as Earth has aged 16 centuries while you were aboard our colony ship, so did time pass here. Your years became generations. Your Visigoth people live. Auric flies inside of the walls, dragging the priest with him as the priest is pleading for him to stop. Guards patrol outside of the walls, but inside, we are not safe. Auric assures him that he has nothing to fear from his own people, and then he sees a red-headed woman with his family crest on it. He runs over to her. I thought I'd lost you, wife. Your husband has returned. He grabs the blanket and realizes this isn't his wife, and he demands to know where she got it. He then turns to the priest for answers, and the priest informs him, these are the offspring of your people. It is your clan, as proven by the crest. Everyone here works the gardens, and the garment that he holds is proof that this is his lineage, and it's been passed down from the original Visigoth slaves. Auric points at him. I have known enemies like you. They were the Romans, better weapons, bigger armies, and you think that that makes you gods. What gives you the right to impose your will on others? Just as you worship your gods, we worship ours, and what we do in service of it. Where is your god? I wish to have words with him. Do you not know? You are wearing it. Auric looks down at his hands. This is only armor. Our faith teaches that the Shanhara will choose a worthy wearer, and that individual will usher in a new age. Auric considers this, and then he launches into the sky. To usher in a new age, we must baptize with fire. He soars into the Vine's armies, tearing apart their war machines and beating them down with their own legs. But eventually they grab each one of his limbs and they shout out, for the good of the Vine! And they launch missiles at him, sacrificing themselves in an attempt to drop him. Yet, Auric survives and he begins to stumble away, so they launch another barrage of missiles at him. The explosion throws him even further and he begins trying to pull himself along as they start trying to land soldiers near him. Seeing their ships approaching, Auric opens fire on them, destroying the ships in mid-air. One of the soldiers then hits the ground and Auric tries to shoot at him, but misses and passes out finally. The armor itself detaches and it floats nearby. The soldier walks over, seeing Shanhara and realizing this human is the chosen one. So he picks up Auric and carries him off, leaving the armor there to be collected by the Vine. Auric wakes up the next day with the red-headed woman at his side and he jumps up startled, but he falls back down due to his injuries. Auric thanks the mysterious woman and then the alien that carried him walks back in. Shanhara be praised, you have survived! Auric gets up ready to fight, but the priest stops him and explains that this is Dalgan. He saved him. Dalgan explains that if the Shanhara has chosen Auric, who is he to question? And then the priest explains that Dalgan isn't the only one. Many on the Vine homeworld of Loom have been waiting for this day. While this should be a day of rejoicing, it's a day of which eons of devotion are unraveling because of those that consider him an abomination. As he speaks of this, the generals of Loom are planning their attack on the slave colony of Visigoth. They will eradicate every human on Loom if they have to. Back with Auric though, he steps outside using the garment with his crest on it for warmth, and then he sees the pyres. They explain that every night individuals die in their sleep while in captivity, and Auric realizes he needs to free his people. He throws the garment on the fire just as one of the slaves shouts, "The masters are here!" The priest tells him that he has to run and hide, but Auric sees the army and knows that this army is not for one man. They are here to kill everyone. Luckily, he can feel the Shanhara armor in his body. His left hand was severed and regrown by the armor. So he holds up the arm and he begins to try and summon the armor. Over in the Vine's containment field, the armor breaks out and it shoots over to Auric, and he can feel it coming, so he leaps forth, ready to fight it. And as he's about to land in the middle of the fight, the armor arrives, forming around him. He begins slicing open the army, opening them from mouth to gut, splitting them open and blasting those who stand before him. The priest tells each of the Visigoth slaves to run for the forest. They must hide, while Auric continues his onslaught, gutting the Vine's soldiers. The generals see where the slaves are going, and they send soldiers in after them. So Auric blasts off into the sky, and he bombards every single one of the aliens, and fire burns all around them. The army realizes that they are outgunned, and they begin calling for a retreat, and the slaves cheer as Auric has saved them. But this isn't the end. The priest informs Auric that there are many slaves in this world, and if he could get them all on his side. It doesn't take long for that very thing to happen. Auric gets every slave race to join him in his fight against the Vine, and they launch a full charge on them. While this is happening, the priest and Dalgan have been captured, and they are at the council to discover that the council intends to use the Sky Array to destroy the entire city as Auric attacks, in hopes of dropping the armor once and for all. And while the casualties will be great, they will keep word from getting out that a human has taken the armor. Back with Auric, the battle rages on with him in the lead, and the entire army of the Vine stand between him and the city. As they drop the army and make their way to the city, the general has the Sky Array get prepared. The priest is in disbelief. The Shanhara has chosen. You'd kill millions to hide that fact? Then one of the council members smashes him in the head. Shanhara is a lie! The prophecies are fiction. The reason no Vine could ever wear it is because no Vine can wear the armor. You have dedicated your life to a myth, priest. The armor has not chosen this animal because he is divine. It is because he is not Vine. Our research showed it was indeed born of a Hara Vine, but the Vine was not of this world. It is not of any of our worlds. Just then, their escape transport arrives so that they can get out of there before the Sky Array destroys everything, and Auric blows it up in one fell swoop, telling them he will decide who gets to leave. He lands and he breaks the council's weapons, preventing them from even harming him. And then the priest stands up and declares the prophecy is fulfilled. The human is the worthy one. Auric then takes the council's heads. He literally cuts them off, and he dials up the Sky Array as it's charging to tell them that he has taken Loom, so they can either stop the array and stand with him, or stand with the council as he holds up their heads. The troops on the Sky Array all bow. Worthy one, we obey. The people of the Vine begin following Auric as he is now their chosen one, and they show the entirety of Loom the fact that Shanhara has chosen. It is a new age. A few days pass, and Auric leaves Loom in the hands of the priest and Dalgan, and he wants to bring his new wife Sana to Earth with him. He walks to the pilot's seat on the ship and has a seat. With his job done, he has now gotten his revenge and found his people. While it's been a crazy journey, it's not over, is it? Because Auric now wants Darcia back. Darcia doesn't exist anymore, so he'll just make it. But since Auric has returned to Earth, he finds himself staring at his uncle's crown, because it is now in a museum. Things have changed since the last time that he has seen it. His homeland of Dacia is no longer around. Upon fighting off the Vine, Auric freed the other slaves on Loom and returned them to Earth. But like I said, it is 16 centuries later. His arrival in a Vine spacecraft has also brought the attention of the world powers onto him, including the US government. He floated above a park in Romania, and Auric knew what he must do. He must take back the land that was once Dacia and rule it as its king. Back at the current time, a voice calls out to Auric, telling him that crowns are easier gained than actually won. He turns back and sees his old mentor, Galad, a man he once trained with in his younger years. Auric shouts to him that he is a welcome sight as an old Visigoth. Or is it young? It seems like Galad has not even aged a year. It has been 16 centuries. And Galad tells him that he could say the same. But he would wager that the story of how Auric is alive in this day and age would be as remarkable as the one as to how he acquired the armor that he now wears. Auric says that he wouldn't believe him if he told him. Wait, did the creatures capture you too, Galad? With a stern look, Galad tells him that he is not a Visigoth. Rather, he is more of Earth than anything. Auric asks him how. He remembers watching as he took an arrow to the chest, and Galad tells him that he should have died, but ordinary weapons cannot kill him. Galad goes on stating that after that battle, he went in search of Auric, but he found nothing. But now, he has returned only a few weeks ago from space. As he extends his arm, Auric tells him that he knows not of what magic that keeps him alive for so many centuries. But that matters not. He has counseled people once before, and he shall do it again. Without shaking, Galad says that he's glad that he wants his advice, because he comes with a message, and that is, what he is doing is wrong. This is not the 5th century. One cannot simply descend from the heavens and plant their flag on someone else's country. The world is watching. Auric shouts that his people deserve a place of their own, and he will see to it that they have it. Galad sighs, telling him that if he stopped for a moment and looked, he could see that this place isn't his anymore. Behaving foolishly will only lead innocent people to be massacred. But rather than answering with words, Auric answers by cracking Galad across the face. Galad responds by stating that he will allow that one from what he has suffered, but only that one. Auric stands ready to strike again, shouting that he is no longer a student, he is a king! He has freed a nation. The Huns, the Romans, they're all scourges! And them, forgotten, ignored, nothing but a handful of babble set on display. Auric goes on stating that they can change this. He will change this! And if the old teacher wish not stand by his side, he will learn what it is to stand at his! But as Auric charges forward to hit Galad again, Galad steps aside, pushing Auric past him, crashing him into a display case. Auric picks himself up from that case and Galad tells him, "You claim to be a man, yet you still act like a child. Now stay down, or I will have to put you down for good." Auric glances at his old uncle's crown and he tells Galad, "I am no longer the boy that you once knew. I have fought many battles, seen things that even you could not imagine." Galad folds his arms, stating that he somehow doubts that. The earth has allowed him to walk its surface for more lifetimes than even he can remember. I've stood on the steps of the ziggurat in Ur. I saw Christ nailed to a cross. I rode at your uncle's side at the streets of Rome. I've bore witness to history. After getting up, Auric asks, has he been enslaved by an alien race only to escape with a conscious armor? Conquered their homeworld and returned to Earth with its slaves 16 centuries later? Galad stops when he hears that story and Auric tells him, "I didn't think so." And he winds up for another punch. But as that punch is thrown, Galad grabs it, gripping it and forcing him down, telling him, "Experience does not equal wisdom." And he pushes Auric away. As Auric crashes into the stone statues, Galad holds Alaric's crown, stating that Alaric endured many trials during his reign, but he learned from them. Auric jumps back up, swinging, shouting, "You would dare speak of the crown! Have me surrender the land of my people?" And Auric takes a swing, and Galad easily dodges, twisting Auric's arm and slamming him into a wall, stating that all you've done is set a ship down, and now you think that that's the end of it. All you've done is invite the combined armies of the world to rain calamity onto you. As Galad goes on, the Manowar armor floats and then it transforms, opening up. Auric tells him, "You better make this lecture a good one, for it will be your last." Galad quickly turns back, shooting at the armor, but as it weaves past him and onto Auric, Auric says, "The earth has not seen the likes of me." And the two of them begin to fire back and forth at each other, with Galad ducking behind a pillar, shouting that he is just like every other knight that he has fought before. Talk brave, but hide in a suit of armor. Auric stops shooting and tells him, "Fine, what do you propose that we do?" And Galad tells him, "Honor but one wish." Galad pulls out a sword, telling him, "Fight me as the warriors that we once were." As they run at each other, Auric creates an electric sword, stating, "Not as I was, but as I am." The two swords clash as sparks and lightning shoot across the room, and through that light, Auric headbutts through it, crushing down on Galad's head. As Galad stumbles back, Auric rushes in, slamming his sword down against Galad's, throwing him off balance again. But rather than let him fall back, Auric grabs Galad by the arm and tells him, "I do not wish this to be your day, only that you never forget it." As Auric's fist clenches down onto Galad's arm, he bends it, snapping it, exposing the bone. Galad falls down to his knees in pain, and he tells Auric, "You are such an ass that you would think that you could just charge through everything. You are far too dangerous to wield such a weapon. Trampling through enemies in such a way will tread on everything else as well." Auric looks down to see Alaric's crown on the ground, now destroyed. And Galad walks up, telling him, "I am here to help you. Let us find another way, because right now the enemies are shaking hands to ally themselves against you." Without looking back, Auric says that he is to leave these lands and never return, and if he does, he will show no mercy. Galad turns back and leaves, calling out that everything that happens now is on his shoulders. Later, Auric returns to his claimed lands as all of the slaves now tend to the farmland. But as he spends his time with Sana, a drone flies overhead watching. Back in the US control room, Colonel Capshaw asks, "Are they farming? What the hell kind of invasion is this?" Clearly, they must be intelligent to find Earth, but their leader appears to be an idiot. As Capshaw monitors, a call on a secure line comes in, and on that line is Alexander Dorian, and he tells her that he is an acquaintance of Neville Ascot from the British intelligence, and it is time that they sit down and talk. A little while later, Auric stands out in the fields watching a songbird as he did as a child, and as it flies off, he looks up, telling his father that his son is finally home. He heads back to where the men farm, telling them that their harvest will last them a dozen winters. Right now, they farm for themselves on the ground that he has claimed for them. The farmers then all begin to chant Auric's name as he smiles and waves. and he heads back to his home. But after leaving, one of the farmers, Volo, asks, why do we cheer his name? Then his friend Tamis tells him, because he has set them free from their masters. Volo looks around and asks, free? Back on Loom, they were slaves tending to farmlands. What are they doing now? Tending to farmlands just as before. He, for one, is done with Arik's rule. He claimed the land was theirs as far as the eye can see, and now he is seeing much further than this field. As Volo walks off, Tamis follows, and the two men soon find themselves in the abandoned streets of Romania. Tamis asks, what are all of these rows of stone? And Volo tells him, dwellings perhaps. This whole place is alien to them. And as they walk, Volo notices something through a window. They head inside and they find food. Everything that they could ever want right here, all in one place. Back at Arik's landing site, he is awoken by the sounds of a helicopter flying by. He quickly jumps out of bed, putting on the Manowar suit, and he jets off in the helicopter. Alexander tells Capshaw over the phone to just trust him, he'll talk Arik down. One of the pilots mentions that they are approaching the landing zone, and Alexander says, good. Keep the course slow and steady. We're peacekeepers here. And the other pilot asks if anyone told them that. A blip appears on the radar and the pilots shout for evasive maneuvers. But rather than staying, Alexander jumps from the helicopter shouting, no, 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 and then it suddenly explodes. Arik flies by catching Alexander, and Alexander shouts that they were carrying the white flag of truce. Arik tosses him to the ground, stating that the last time one of the ships came by, it brought men who tried to kill him. As Arik steps back into his room, Sana asks who this is, and Arik tells him it's an old ally. If you're just joining us for the first time, Alexander Dorian helped Arik in the original battle against the aliens when he teamed up with Ninjak. Alexander stumbles in, telling her that he is Alexander Dorian, CEO of Orb Industries. Him and Arik saved the planet once, just the two of them. Arik stops him and asks, what are you doing here? And Alexander tells him that he is here by the authorization of the US government to offer him asylum. Arik smiles and says, ha! They wish to repay me for destroying the Vine Commandos and stopping the invasion? Well, I, for one, welcome their warriors into our camp. Alexander rubs his face, telling him, no, the Americans are inviting him, and all of his people for that matter. He goes on to state that they are currently not safe here. 7 of the world's 8 nuclear powers are kind of in his backyard. What he offers for them is to pack up and set up shop in America and let them govern themselves. A scorned look comes over Arik's face and he tells him that he is not Arik of America, he is Arik of Dacia. Alexander tells him, look, I can broker out a deal that will have you both coming out as winners here. And Arik stops him, holding out his fist, telling him, I am already victorious. I have been blessed with the destruction of my enemies. Meanwhile, back in the market the farmers found, Tamis walks through the aisles when suddenly he is hit in the back of the head. As he falls knocked out, a group of soldiers appear and begin to drag him away. Back at the campsite, Volo presents the farmers with the already made food, telling them that Arik says wheat will come in months, but he can give them food today. The crowds all begin to chant Volo, and as they do, he looks around asking where Tamis went. Elsewhere, with those soldiers, Tamis is being strapped to an operating table when he hears the soldiers being told to wait outside. As the soldiers leave, a doctor in a biohazard suit pulls out a small saw, and Tamis shouts for him to stay away, but soon the van that they are in is filled with the screams of Tamis. A short while later, the doctor leans out of the truck telling the soldiers that they can come back in. He's found something interesting. As everyone gets back in, they find Tamis completely cut open, and the doctor tells them that from what he can tell, these extraterrestrial people appear to be human. One of the soldiers begins to laugh, stating, well, that's a good thing. It means that this should be easy to kill. Back at the campsite, Alexander asks Arik if he's given some thought on the offer, and Arik tells him no, he will remain here, because this is their homeland. Alexander then tells him, look, this isn't about conquering or anything. This is about keeping you and your people safe. There's 2 problems here. One is that you're planting your gardens in old Soviet Union turf, which is now a part of NATO, which means you're kind of pissing off the entire world. Second, you all showed up smack dab in the middle of a new arms race that's happening in space. Arik holds out his hand, telling him, that is enough. I know what it's like to have things promised and then taken away. The Romans did it to us as children, but that ends now. Arik then walks over to the balcony, telling Alexander to look at how his farmers are taking care of their country. Watch as they plan. But he stops as he sees the farmers aren't doing anything. Soldiers gather on the outskirts of the camp asking, are they picnicking? Arik flies down to the field to ask everyone why they do not tend to the crops. Where did all of this foodstuffs come from? Volo steps forward, stating that he found them. They did not travel to this new world to remain as slaves. Arik tells them not slaves. They are building a new life, as they wish it to be. But he stops him short, stating, no, as he wishes it to be. All of this work is done with the strength of their backs as he watches from his dwellings. But as the two of them begin to argue, they begin shouting at one another whether it is right or wrong. Suddenly there's a blip in Aric's mask, and he shouts, "Watch and be reminded of what makes me your king." He jets off to the location of the mission, and the soldiers on the outside state that it looks like he took the bait. As he gets closer, Arik shoots through the missiles, but there is no explosion. He asks what trickery launched this attack but has no vessel. He then scans the water to see a submarine, and he rockets down below towards it. Back at the campsite, the military moves in, opening fire on all of the farmers as they try to run. Volo calls out for the few men to follow him back to the ship. They're going to take the fight to them, and suddenly the soldiers chasing them are mowed down by chain blasts coming from Volo and his men in the mech suits. Him and the others step out of the ship, and they continue to decimate any soldier in their path. While Volo leads the counterattack at the camp, Arik is ripping through the submarine, destroying it, killing all of those aboard. Volo shouts out victory and everyone cheers for him, but then a crosshair is aimed right at him. And off in the distance, a tank prepares to fire, and that's when Arik comes crushing it before it can fire. Arik leaps over to Volo asking what happened, and he tells him that him and his men defended the people while their king left them. Arik says that he did well, but they have not won. This won't be the final battle in this campaign. Back at the US Command Center, Capshaw says that it was pretty impressive for that fight to only end in 8 minutes, but at least now they know that their Russian sub isn't really all that great, right? A voice in the intercoms tells her that that's one way of looking at it. Capshaw looks back at the monitor and tells Toya Harada that what can she say? She's a silver lining kind of girl, which she now hopes he is one as well. And Toya tells her that preparations have been made. The time to act is now. Since the call from Colonel Capshaw, Toya met with Galad in an attempt to speak with Arik directly, but he ended up having his arm broken by him. Toya looks at Galad's broken arm and says that it seems that meeting with the insurgent did not go as expected. Galad tells him that it actually went as expected. It just did not go well. Toya then says that he plans on taking Arik down before the Russians decide that they want to see the world on fire before getting him. So, he's been putting together something. He leads Galad to the Harbinger facility to meet with his new team, the one that he'll be sending in to attempt to capture Arik. The commander of the group begins to explain their plans of infiltration by traveling through Turkey. Galad stops him, telling him that they are fools if they think that the Russians won't pick them off before they even get to Arik. Their best course of action will be to flank from the stratosphere, stagger the attack, and keep Arik off his balance. And even if they manage to land and fight, they'll have to remember who's all around them. The Russians won't hesitate to kill them. You may be slightly confused right now, but just so you know, Arik is Manowar, an individual from a time long ago who acquired an alien supersuit much in the manner of a power suit. He went to the alien planet where he killed off all of the aliens, grabbed all of the slaves that were his people, and he came back to the world as it is today, where he discovered that his land had been taken over. Unaware of the current laws in the world, he's decided that he'll just conquer a portion of the world to use as his own, and the governments of the world are not happy with that. While Arik is a hero, it's time for the rest of the heroes to take him down. So a short while later, Toya and Galad head over to Toya's office and he asks, "What do you think?" And Galad tells him that they seem like a strong group, brave but inexperienced. Some might survive. Meanwhile, over in Romania, Ninjak sits for a bite to eat, and after insulting the waitress on their tea, he receives a call that it's time to move out. Toya offered Ninjak $10 million to be a part of his team. Even when the world was talking of nuclear options, this would have been one of the jobs that he would have done for free. Killing Arik would have been one thing, but Toya wants him captured? He tried to do that before in one of the earlier Exo storylines, but the barbarian nearly killed him. Over at Arik's camp, one of the guards calls out that a vessel is approaching. Without even saying a word, Arik looks up in the sky and he fires a blast right through Ninjak's drone. Ninjak jumps out of an aircraft as it blows up and he sneaks his way through the forest. It doesn't take long to reach the Vine spaceship that Arik stole, and luckily, Ninjak only sees one guard patrolling it. While the others all begin to search the wreckage of the downed drone, Ninjak takes down the guard and begins to make his way into the spacecraft. During the confusion, Toya sends out the Unity team to assist in the capture of Arik. However, as Ninjak watches, the team descends on the target location. Arik's suit then begins to warn him, and it easily captures 2 of the soldiers before they even reach the ground. As the other 2 manage to land, before they can even get a chance to attack, Arik fires another blast into the captain's head. His head begins to burn and smolder, and the force rips it off, launching the flaming severed head through the chest of the second soldier. While the soldiers are all decimated, Toya radios in, telling Ninjak that it seems that Arik's armor is linked to the ship, and he knows that he's there. Just as Toya tells him that he should hide, Auric crashes through the walls, punching deep into Ninjak's chest. Ninjak tries to throw a flash bomb into Auric's face, but the mask protects him, and he just grabs a hold of the secret agent. Auric asks, "Who's your master?" And then his energy sword stabs and burns into Ninjak, who doesn't answer him. Ninjak's body begins to fall to the ground, and Auric shouts, "The soldiers are dead. They may come and surrender their sword to him, or he shall take it." As the assault is stopped, Toya and Galad head out, and Galad asks what's their next move. Toya tells them that they have to call in one of the most powerful Psyots alive, Livewire. As the two of them enter into Livewire's shack, Toya wastes no time in explaining their current situation and what they're facing. The possibility of not stopping Auric before the Russians move could lead to a nuclear missile being launched and destroying everything around the target area. Toya goes on to tell her that she isn't just one of the few people that he trusts. He needs her, so he will not require an apology. Livewire says that's good because he won't be getting one. She is loyal to him, even though some of his goals she cannot agree with. There is a code that she lives by, and she proved by freeing Peter Stanchek. What was being done to those children was not right, but so long as they both know that she didn't betray him, she will assist in their efforts. A short while later, back in the spacecraft, Ninjak frees himself from his chain bindings and recovers his equipment. As he does, he reports back to Toya, informing him that they are currently on their way towards him. Just as Toya's ship gets closer, Toya detonates the ship's self-destruct and brings him, Galad, and Livewire down into it. Once they get in, Galad looks around and says that he really doesn't like this. There's no one around, and he's seen enough traps in his lifetime to know that this is going to be one. The three make their way to Ninjak's location to try and free him, but not long into their walk, the guards begin to attack. Toya turns back to them, using his Psyot abilities to rip apart the attackers, and over in the control room, a siren goes off, and Ninjak tells him that that can't be good. Just then, the doors open and more guards appear. Ninjak throws his sword into one of them, and he fights back against those that he can, but then he begins to feel a rumble. The rumble travels through the entire ship as it starts to blast off, and it slowly climbs into the sky, but after a few moments of preparing, the ship then rockets into space, and Auric smiles and says, "This'll be like lambs to the slaughter." With the spacecraft in space, more guards continue to flood in, but Galad, Livewire, and Toya have no issues in killing them. Once the last of them has fallen, Livewire says that she will try and communicate with the ship to try and see if they can bring it back down to Earth. You see, Livewire's abilities are to be able to communicate with any form of electronic. As the last of the guards fall, Toya says that he'll head over to Ninjak's location while they try to bring the ship back down. Livewire and Galad make their way to the ship's core, and Livewire taps in. But as she does, she says that she can see Auric is interfering with her connection, like he's a part of this ship. She then turns back as he's a digital Auric attack and stab into her. Galad calls out that they need to hurry and sever Auric's connection, and he's going to need some help in doing so. He then sees Auric connecting into the ship, and he charges in punching. After getting back up, Auric tells him, "You're a fool for even trying," and he fires a blast and narrowly missing Galad's head. Livewire continues to battle against the digital Auric while Toya and Ninjak head back to assist Galad, and as the three of them focus their attention on the real Auric inside the digital world, Livewire releases a virus that tells everyone that they will need to keep Auric busy for a while so that she can finish. Outside, Toya shields himself as Auric tries to strike down on him, and Ninjak attempts to redirect the attacks, but just as Auric turns back, Toya holds him in place. Back in the digital space, the virus starts to work itself in, cutting Auric off from the systems, and once Auric is held down, Livewire says that she found out how to sever his connection, and that's by cutting off the digital copy's head. Livewire cuts through the digital Auric, and the armor on the real Auric begins to peel off and reform onto Livewire. Once the armor is fully on her, the ship begins to fall back from space and burn in the atmosphere, and then it crashes into the ocean. It starts to sink. While the ship systems are failing, Livewire says that she can communicate with the ship, and there's an escape craft close by. Galad kneels down to Auric and he tells him to just stay down. "We have your armor. Don't make us take your life." But as he goes on, Galad asks, "What? You have nothing to say?" Auric smiles and tells him, "No, I'm just waiting." Soon Livewire screams, and Toya manages to catch her before falling. Galad demands to know what's going on. They are facing a nuclear war if he doesn't stop this. And Auric tells them that the armor lives. It acts, and it listens to him. Livewire begins to move, and she tells them to run, and Toya asks why. But that's when the suit fires a blast at him. Auric takes that chance to attack and punch down Galad. Galad gets up, trying to stop Livewire from attacking Ninjak, telling her that she needs to stop this. So Ninjak throws two shurikens, and as they get close, Auric tells the suit to spin around, and as they land, they're in Galad's back. Auric calls out to Ninjak so that they can fight, but Livewire screams not to. With no control, the armor fires two small missiles into the ship's hull, blasting and creating a hole for water to begin to pour in. While the room begins to flood, Auric steps out telling them that they should not have stood against him. "We could have been mighty allies." As the sea washes over, Toya wakes up and he plugs the hole before more water can come back in. He tells everyone that he's still weak, so they're going to need to hurry. So Livewire picks herself back up, and as she does, the suit begins to show her things. It begins to show her her past, as if the suit is bonding with her. Visions of her past, then Oryx. It's like the suit is accepting her, and as her eyes begin to glow, she says that she's got it. She's in full control of the Exo Manowar armor. She begins to blast a hole in the door, stating that she knows which way to go. The escape pod should be over there. And as they make their way through, Ninjak looks around at all of the survivors and says, yeah, totally a bloody trap. Everyone watches Auric to see what he's planning to do next, and that's when he calls for a retreat. While some of the people are escaping, the others charge into Galad and the rest of them to keep them from leaving. With the two groups once again clashing, Galad hits Auric, telling him, your fight is finished. The two struggle back and forth, but Galad manages to punch Auric to the ground now that he doesn't have a super suit to protect himself. The fight is ended as quickly as it has started, and Livewire says that they now have another problem. A very large problem. Everyone asks what, and without saying it, she shoots up and out of the ship. During the confusion, Auric runs over to the other survivors to escape in the pond, and Ninjak says that he's not sure what's up with Livewire, but he's pretty sure that the last boat out of here has been taken. Toya grits his teeth, telling them, no, we have won, and Auric owes us for the loss of our soldiers. He then releases a psionic blast, destroying the escape pod and flooding the room. One of the men shouts that he just killed them all, and Toya tells him, no, just you. Meanwhile, as Livewire jumps out of the water, she sees the nuke that Russia was planning to launch already in the aircraft. She heard before leaving that there was chatter over the Russian radio stating that they did launch the nuke. With this suit, Livewire can feel her abilities getting stronger, as if they are amplifying. The suit caters to its wearer, as if it's an extension to them, so it's no wonder why the suit made a sword for Auric. For her, however, she doesn't need a sword. All she needs is a few wires. And the wires that she's looking at connected to the missile, so she deactivates it. However, as Toya appears on the water's surface, she begins to think how Toya isn't saying it, but through the ship's eyes, she saw what happened, what he did to those people. She then rockets back down into the water, pulls the escape pod with the trapped survivors out, saving them along with Auric. Later, Galad, Ninjak, and Livewire all meet up with Toya in his office to discuss what they plan to do with the suit. The original plan was that once it was secure, they would give it over to the US government. However, Galad feels that no one should be in possession of such a weapon. Toya agrees, which is why he will be the one to contain it and remove it from the board. Ninjak states that he feels pretty uncomfortable with that idea, and Galad adds that the world would be against him. They would be against him. The suit slowly begins to unwrap itself from Livewire, and she hands it over to Toya, telling him that she trusts his judgment. Galad slams his fist on the table, telling Toya to remember this day. It is the tipping point. But after putting the suit into its container and locking it away, Livewire still remembers what it was like to be connected with everything. She saw Toya's encrypted files on his private servers, every email that he's ever sent. So with the information that she has now seen of Toya's behind-the-scenes villainy, Livewire and the rest have learned that Toya cannot be trusted with that armor. It's time for her, Ninjak, and Galad to get it back. After the suit was taken away, Galad headed off to Toya's office to tell him that he needs to speak with him regarding the current situation. While Toya focuses on several other things, he tells Galad to go on. It's just hard to keep his mind on one thing at once. Meanwhile, in the containment room, the Psiont Anchor begins to watch over the suit, and while he does, Ninjak sneaks down to try and grab it. He pulls out his sword, and over the radio, Livewire tells him not to kill Anchor. As Ninjak's sword shatters when he attempts to stab Anchor's head, he tells her, affirmative, that won't be a problem. Anchor swings back, throwing Ninjak against a wall, so he jumps up, reaching out for the armor, and Anchor tells him that if he tries, he will die. Back in Toya's office, he stops for a moment and tells Galad that they think that they were clever, but he has just proven himself expendable, and he flies out crashing through the walls. Over in the containment room, Anchor pins Ninjak to the ground, and then after a few flicks of his wrist, he releases a gas stunning Anchor. Toya lands just outside of the containment room and pulls the armor from Ninjak's hands, but as it flies towards him, Livewire jumps in its path, covering herself with it. Toya tries to attack, but Galad grabs Toya from behind, kicking him in the back. Galad sees Toya try to turn and control him, but Galad pulls out his gun and aims it at his own head. Ninjak throws his shuriken just as Galad is going to pull the trigger, killing himself, causing him to miss and stab into Toya. Toya yells out in pain, and he thrusts the sword back out, using the hilt to hit Ninjak. Toya picks himself back up, and he begins to strangle Ninjak, but from the ground, Livewire shoots up, grabbing Toya. The two of them blast off into the sky, and Livewire says that she's seen every email that he has ever written, all of his corrupt plans, and how he let the innocent Visigoths drown in the ocean. With the air thinning, Toya starts to lose consciousness, and Livewire tells him this. This is where we say goodbye, and she releases his lifeless body. As she heads back down to the ground, Ninjak asks if she killed him, and she says no. His body puts up a protective barrier whenever he's unconscious. She then holds up a picture of Auric, as he's being held in a containment camp because this armor was never theirs. So why make an enemy when they could have a stronger ally? Over in the Sigma Camp Detention Center, Auric sits with the other Visigoth survivors from the escape pod trying to call back the armor. But while he does, Volo and Sana ask what they're going to do. He says that he's not sure, but he can feel the armor wanting to return to him. Volo then hands over a rock, stating that it's hard to make sharp, so he will need to press hard for it to cut. Some of the detention guards come out shouting for Auric, but as Volo tells them that if they want him, they're gonna have to go through them, Auric tells them to stop. They brought them here for a reason, and it is time to learn what that reason is. They bring him to an interrogation room where Colonel Capshaw walks in, stating that she trusts the conditions here are palatable, best they could do on such a short notice. Auric asks why is he here, and Capshaw holds up photos telling him that he landed a spaceship in Romania, turned downtown into a farm, and killed a bunch of Russian infantry before destroying a ballistic missile sub. And he thinks that she's the reason he's locked up? She's the reason that he is still breathing. He's the reason that he's here. Auric goes on stating that he did what he has done because he was promised asylum, so he did what a king of his people would do. But under the table, Auric takes the rock given to him by Volo to the edge between the cuffs. While him and Capshaw continue talking, one of the guards notices blood dripping and shouts that he has a knife. They quickly jump and restrain him, and Capshaw picks up the rock, stating that she's impressed that he would go that far. He shouts that they have no idea what he can do. The armor is not something that he wore, it was a part of him. His hands begin to charge and shine, and Capshaw tells the guards to sedate him. One of the guards cracks Auric in the back of the head, causing him to fall, and Capshaw tells them to hand him over to medical for tests. A short while later, Auric lays on a table knocked out while Capshaw and the doctor examine his arm. Capshaw asks what exactly are they looking at, an extraterrestrial prosthetic? And the doctor looks at her, telling her honestly he has no clue. What she's asking to know is simply something that they don't know the answer to. She tells him fine, stop the gas feed into the room and wake him up. She'll ask him herself. The vents in the containment room begin to turn on, and Auric's eyes begin to spring open. As he gets up, he sees Capshaw walk in holding a gun, and he tells her that he's set with her as a king, and this is how she repays him. She says that there was a mistake made on both sides, but look, she will put down her weapon. He can kill her if he'd like, or they can talk about what America can do for him. Galad the Eternal Warrior has lived since before time to protect the Geomancer, and he failed. The Geomancer died, but a Geomancer was sent from the future to defeat a great villain. The problem is, the Geomancer from the future wasn't supposed to be here, and once the old Geomancer passed, a new one was selected. Now we have two, and we should never have two. Soldiers walk into a town to see the situation, and it's there that they find all of the residents are run through with tree branches and suspended over the walkway. The Earth itself is turning on humanity. Neville Alcott and Colonel Jamie Capshaw, each heads of their own secret organization, step out because they know only one person has this power, the Geomancer. And Galad the Immortal's job is to protect the Geomancer. Jamie feels that the Geomancer may be losing control of her powers. She is only 11 and that makes her dangerous, but Neville wants to know why Galad would be protecting her if that's the case. Regardless, they agree that it's time to send in Unity to get answers. Auric lands with a thud in front of Galad. Auric is a Visigoth warrior in alien battle armor known as Manowar, and Galad is an immortal tasked with protecting the Earth. But the two of them are friends. Auric turns to Galad and he asks them to come in. Stop running and return the girl. And Galad tells Auric that they aren't running, they are being hunted. Tama, the young Geomancer, isn't to blame for the murderous acts being committed, and Galad has been explaining this to Gate. But they won't listen. He won't allow them to take Tama and test her as they would have done in the past when they are afraid. They think in decades, not millennia. Auric tries to convince his friend, but it won't work, so he takes off calling Galad a fool. Galad and Tama walk into the shack in the middle of nowhere where he has Tama lay down and read the book of the Geomancers. Only she can read the prophecies, and Galad is hoping for answers. She opens the book to tell of a prophecy of the end of time, when a new and terrible Geomancer will rise, and with him will come the Dark Age. In the prophecy, it is Galad that assembles a team to face off against the evil Geomancer, but in the end, everyone fails. Even Unity fails. Galad asks Tama if the book describes this Geomancer, but Tama tells him that it doesn't, and she rolls over to talk to the ants and go to sleep. But that's when David sees her through the eyes of the ants. He tells a mysterious man the other Geomancer isn't supposed to be here. Then he has the ants begin attacking Tama. Galad runs over to her, but he's stung by a scorpion on the neck. He then looks outside to see the whole place is being overwhelmed by scorpions. But as he tries to find an answer, and he starts a fire to burn these creatures, the roof is torn off of the building, showing us Unity. Ginger, Livewire, Manowar, and Ninjak are here to stop this new Geomancer. They all drop the scorpions, and Galad tells Tama to stay here while he steps outside to confront Unity. They give him one chance to turn her in and he refuses, so Ninjak throws a sigh into Galad's shoulder. The lines are drawn, Galad says, tearing it out of his own shoulder. Livewire tries to put a stop to this by asking Galad how he can't see that it's the Geomancer doing this. 4 towns have been massacred. Galad asks them how they can't see that they are being deceived. Somebody wants the new Geomancer dead. He then raises his axe. Your intentions are clear. Ninjak starts things off by running in to attack Galad, telling the rest of the team that they'll all fall for Galad's mines that he laid out. Ninjak then jumps into the air ready to strike, but a trapdoor opens up on the floor revealing spikes, and instead of landing on the ground, Ninjak falls into them, stabbing his leg in multiple places. Then Galad grabs him and puts his axe to Ninjak's throat. You bastard. Ninjak mumbles. Auric goes in for the next attack, opening fire on Galad. But Galad dodges, throwing one of Ninjak's swords over by Auric, setting off an explosion that removes Auric from the fight. Livewire has no machines to control, so she begins taking control of Ginger against her will and begins opening fire on Galad. Galad then presses a button that disables Ginger, also dropping Livewire. Auric then gets up, raising his flaming sword ready to go, and Galad blocks it with his axe and Ninjak's other sword. Auric throws him back, but Galad gets up, telling him, "Come at me, boy." Auric furiously responds with, "I am no child." So Galad grabs his arm with his axe, and he tells him, "You are all children to me. No respect for the wisdom of the ages, the experience of 1,000 battles." He then presses a button on Ninjak's sword, turning on a vibration mode, and stabbing Auric in the shoulder, pinning him. It was a mode specifically built to stop Exo Manowar. As he walks away, he tells Auric, "It's not lethal, but ask yourself if you ever want to trust Ninjak again." He then takes Tama and he loads her up in a truck, and they leave Unity there disabled. While this is going on, David is cowering in the corner of his room, and the mysterious voice is telling him, "Find the girl! Find her now!" But David tells him, he can't find her. She's too strong. Back at the battlefield, Livewire gets back up, and she gets everyone else out of there, reporting that they failed. Galad got away with the Geomancer. While they try and decide what to do next, Galad has Tama read from the book again to tell the prophecy. She tells how Unity would fall, leaving only Galad left to fight, and in the end, he would lose. But he would be left to fight again and again, forever to find another battle. But as she is reading, a swarm of birds begins to attack the truck. They panic, and Tama drops the book, and as she does, the birds all leave. Galad and Tama get out to see what they can figure out, and that's when Galad makes the connection. It's the book. Meanwhile, David tells her mysterious voice that he lost them again, and he starts crying. He's trying to find them, but it hurts. Two hands grasp him by the scalp, and then power begins to surge through David. "Master Dark commands you," the voice tells him. Unity begins to formulate a new plan, one that involves magic, because that's the only way that they're gonna find Galad and Tama. And that night, Galad comes up with a new plan. He wants Tama to read from the book, because he can use it to track the other Geomancer. While they are coming up with this plan, David is growing a plan to try and call out for help, and Dark isn't too happy. He begins to beat the boy, telling him to listen, or he'll never see his mother again. So David has a seat and he begins to prepare his magics again. "I am the rightful Geomancer," he tells himself. "This is my right!" Back at Galad's campsite, he prepares for an attack while Tama continues to prophecy. The prophecy of when Unity and Galad are gone, the earth will be made of death. And death is. That's when animals begin to run past them, and they see a series of zombie animals with their entrails hanging out. Death is the corrupted one's domain! Galad jumps in, opening fire with guns on the animals, telling Tama to continue reading. Don't stop! While she goes on about the world being lost, Galad begins tearing apart the zombie animals one by one as they continue trying to get to Tama, until eventually she ends the prophecy, stating that the corrupted one will rule forevermore. Galad takes her over to one of the dead corpses and he tells her to follow the connection back. She reads it and she traces it back to David, and that's when he sees her looking at him. "Help me, please." Dark throws David aside. "Weakling! You'll reveal us!" It doesn't matter though, Tama knows where they are now. So Galad and Tama load up and they head over there. Deep underground, Dark knows Galad is coming for him, so he shaves David's head and he carries him over to an altar. "You are such a disappointment, David." He places him on the altar and has skeletons hold David down, and then he begins the ritual. He's trying to take the power of a Geomancer. Meanwhile, Unity is forming up with their new plan. They brought in Punk Mambo to try and get her to track the magics down, and she can tell that something crazy is going on. She tells Unity to fly faster. He might not make it. The ground beneath Galad and Tama begins to split open, and up rises Dark with an army of death. Now that he has the power of David, he only needs Tama's power to complete himself. The ground breaks and it begins to rise up in chunks, and it goes flying at Galad and Tama begins a Geomancer battle with Dark, while Galad jumps into the hole created and he begins fighting against the creatures that Dark summoned. Plowing through them one by one, they are clawing at him and stabbing him all over, but he continues to cut their heads off, throwing them down until he sees the altar and David screaming in pain. The creatures don't stop though, they keep cutting up Galad, and he begins bleeding out on the ground. Yes, he is immortal, but he does need to heal. As they continue to tear at him, Galad sees one last chance and he throws his axe across the room at the altar, breaking the seal and sending a surge of power through the room. As he drops to the ground, David's power returns to him and all of the creatures begin to vanish. Then on the surface, Dark himself falls to the ground, and seeing her chance, Tama decides that she's going to end this. Roots begin to sprout out of Dark, and his skin begins to harden, and branches come out of his mouth. He becomes a living tree, and she simply tells him, bye. Galad pulls himself up and he picks up David. Through the pain and the blood flowing out of him, he brings the boy back to the surface. Tama runs over panicked. Galad, please be okay. I did such a bad thing to that man. Galad struggles to get the words out. You did what the Earth wanted. You saved us all. I'm going to close my eyes for a while now. And he did that. He closed them. Tama told Galad that the Earth says he's okay. He can finally rest. It says thank you. Galad rests his head on the grass, and he smiles. His journey has come to an end. Then, the Eternal Warrior, the immortal destined to protect the Earth, dies. Unity's ship lands nearby, and they all get out to see their friend, their mentor, their companion laying there. Arik says he doesn't understand. Doesn't Galad always return? Why isn't he healing? And Tama tells him, the Earth released him. He's somewhere nicer now. David walks over asking if they can help him find his mommy. So Unity brought Tama and David to his house, and he surrendered his power to Tama, allowing there to be only one Geomancer once again. Galad gave the entire world hope. It's really too bad that he didn't get to pass on to somewhere nice finally, because his journey is far from over. The Eternal Warrior is now in Hell, and Hell will feel the wrath of the Eternal Warrior.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. We're probably going to be revisiting Exo Manowar in a soon time frame, so I wanted to bring you guys this video so you can all get caught up to it. And I guess we'll be talking to you real soon. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button. We'll see you next time right here.